Cool. So we are live. Um, Also, like you asked, there's no structure to this. It's honestly just whatever. So, like, funny stories, whatever's on your mind, life situations, family history, stories, anything. It's all free game.
Excellent. Sounds great.
So yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay.
Camilla, you were named after Camilla Kimball or something, right?
Yes. So it is a very, very distant relative, Camilla Kimball, who is Spencer W. Kimball's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom always loved the name Camilla and kept it in the back of her head until she had a girl, which was her first child.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of funny that she kept it on the back burner for so long.
yeah.
Like, and was so dedicated to the name because there's no other family members with that name.
No, in fact, I haven't met a lot of people that have that name unless they're Latino. And so a lot of times they'll think that I am Latino until they hear my last name, and then
It's like, yeah, it doesn't
very
cut it.
white. But
No, that checks out. I taught someone in Brazil whose name was Camila.
yeah,
And then, like, American people, I know a lot of Camille's or some variation thereof. Yeah.
yeah, I've met very few Camillas. In fact, the first Camilla I ever met was my freshman year at college, and it actually had like an identity crisis because I was like, I've never met another Camilla. Like,
I'm used to being the only one.
yes, when you grow up in like elementary school, middle school, high school, where like there's so many Hannahs, Rachels, etc. And I never had that problem, so they've been accustomed to it growing up, and I had never had that, so I had like this weird battle. I was like, who is the real Camilla? Who's the
Where's a little bit of like an ego struggle there? It's like, who's gonna take the alpha?
Yes, absolutely. So that was my experience, but I got over it. And
Did you win?
I'd like to say so because I was there a whole year and she was only there a semester.
Oh, you pushed her out. She couldn't take the heat.
Yeah, but truthfully, well, no, I was there before her for a semester, and then she showed up a month or a semester later.
So you already claimed the territory. Time for the other Camilla to move on.
But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even think the ward knew either of us.
Okay. Like both outside wolves. Nothing crazy going on there. Have you ever struggled finding your name on those keychains that you find in gas stations and stuff?
All the time. Yeah, I don't even look.
That's funny. Because I always see Benjamin's name and like James.
Yeah.
But I've like never found mine. So it's funny that
you would find yours maybe.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah.
I always look for it, but unless it's just so popular, everyone buys it and it's gone by the time I get there. But
I'll believe that one. That sounds good.
yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
No, same as you. There were no other Logans growing up until high school. There's one other Logan, but our social circles never really mixed, so
exactly.
it wasn't a huge thing. But yeah, then coming out to BYU, there's quite a bit. But it's still not super common to where it like causes an identity crisis. Yeah. But I totally get what you mean with the friction of like I am her. Who are you?
Or just not really knowing how to handle it. Like, do we become friends? Do we not?
Instant friends or instant enemies?
Yeah. Do we just stay in our separate circles? Exactly. Yeah. Just kind of do our own thing and be our own Camillas.
Yeah.
But it was fine. Honestly, I didn't have an issue. It was just a new experience for me. I hadn't ever had in my entire life.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if people named like Hannah and Rachel, Emma, these more common names, if they like have dealt with that since day one, so it's not a huge thing. Or if it is.
Possibly. Yeah. And I think you also have to understand that, your name will be common, but you have to just make an identity for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had to deal with the issue of people not being able to pronounce my name a lot of the time. So
Really?
I just had to
How would they pronounce it?
Myself for that. I have a list in my phone of ways that people pronounce
all the weird ways, which is so funny because I feel like maybe it's just because I grew up knowing you that it's so basic to me, but I don't. It seems like it's spelled easy enough.
It's spelled very you say it like it's spelled, but I get a lot of the very common ones are Camille.
Yeah.
Or Camilla, which honestly I don't mind Camilla, and that's actually people more say like Camille. I'll hear Camilla, Camellia, Chameleon.
Oh.
I've gotten like chamomile tea.
Didn't even try on that one.
I've gotten different spellings with a K, a C, 2 L's, 1 L, with E's instead of I's, and multiple vowels that don't belong.
That's so strange to me. It doesn't seem that difficult.
Yeah, they're making it more challenging than it needs to be.
All these Utah spellings of the name.
Or, you know what? It wasn't even Utah.
Everyone's
Utah is better than other people.
Dang. On another note, speaking of states, so you grew up in California and you stuck around in California, but a different part. Moved down to SoCal.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. How do you like it down here?
I like it a lot. Always growing up in Northern California, I always wanted to live in Southern California because we would come down here to vacation and visit family. And I loved the life that my cousins lived because I was like, man, they get to go to the beach all the time.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of homework. But little did I know that we were here on vacation at the same time they were on
It's like,
vacation.
wow, they have no
So-
school. That's crazy. What a place to live.
I know. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I want this life. And then I realized, I don't know at what point, but that life is life everywhere. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And so I was going to be in school regardless. I was going to have the homework regardless. Of course, the beach is where the mountains are not, things like that.
Yeah.
And then I did have a little bit of a concern moving down here formally to kind of have the understanding, like, is this going to feel like vacation or is it not going to feel like vacation? Because I knew it was going to be normal life, but I was like, but I still want it to be special.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to lose the charm.
Yeah. The magic can disappear as you become integrated into it more and more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's like I would be living in the exact same house that like we would vacation in and visit the grandparents. And I didn't want to lose the, wow, we're at the beach. Like, let's jump in the water in November.
Yeah.
I never understood why people wear sweaters in November because I'm over here like, this is so warm. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And then look at me. I became the person who wears sweaters in November.
So have you acclimatized now? Like it's cold in November now. You're no longer wearing those t-shirts.
Yes. I mean, right now it's a pretty warm year, so I'm still wearing a t-shirt, but
Gotcha.
I mostly wear the sweater more for the aesthetic. Like, it's finally cold enough that I could pull off.
That's fair. Yeah.
It's not like the necessity of the sweater. It's more like I've been wanting to wear this just because it's the season of it, not necessarily the weather and temperature for it.
Gotcha. The opportunity has finally come up.
Yes,
which is the complete opposite of where you grew up, where it's always cold and it snows. And...
just for the necessities, not quite the aesthetic that you want.
So would you consider yourself to be more of a beach person than a mountain person?
That's such a tough question. I've gone back and forth. I feel like I'm mountains at heart, but then I'll be like, oh, but I'm the beach at heart. But I feel like just based on the upbringing, I identify more with the mountains, but
that makes sense.
It's very beachy, I believe, personality, where I like being barefoot. I like being outdoors, in terms of like the sand and the water.
Mm-hmm.
You can still be in the dirt and the water and like the lakes and the mountains, but a little bit of a different vibe. If I were to vacation though, my true answer would be I would rather vacation in a beach home than a cabin.
Okay.
That would be my answer to that. But in terms of who I am as a person, I don't know. It varies depending on the activity sometimes.
It's like a psychological indicator.
Yeah, but for vacationing, I would vacation at the beach.
And why is that?
I associate not living, but vacationing in a cabin more so with being colder.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going on a ski trip or snowboarding, you're playing in the snow, you're gathering around the fireplace. But I also associate with like more critters, like spiders and bugs and like leaves and dirt. So maybe that's why.
So your vacation vibe is more of a relaxation, rejuvenation, take it easy, take a chill.
And which I never lived that way. I'm more like traveling around.
Which makes sense why your vacation would be the opposite of your regular life.
Yeah, I was like, I would love to, but I imagine having more free, not free as in cost, but like just carefree fun and like a beach mindset, like to relax, to enjoy, to swim around in the water, drink pina coladas. Nice. Like that seems more vacation to me than like having to put in the work, like bringing the firewood, like get your boots on, like lace them up, make sure you're not cold and have to grab a beanie. Yeah. That seems a little bit more work in terms of vacation. Gotcha.
And it's nice to take a break because I feel that for some vacations, man, I would love to go to a cabin, get dirty, chop firewood. But you're right. There comes a point where I would love to switch things up and maybe go take that beach house every now and then. So that's cool. And it seems like you found a healthy mix between you live here, you still have a passion for the mountains, willing to vacation elsewhere. I feel like that's a very well-rounded approach.
Totally. And I think one of my favorite activities is hiking. And you can do mountain hiking, you can do beach or desert hiking.
It's a versatile hobby.
Maybe not beach hiking necessarily, but more in Southern California is more desert hiking. But and truthfully, I prefer the mountain hiking. Like I do better, like breathing wise, my equipment, what I wear. But the desert hiking I had to get used to a little bit more. It's a lot more dusty, hot. It gets hot really quickly.
Flat.
More flat. Yeah, they have hills and stuff, but not like you're gaining elevation in the mountains, right?
Yeah.
So I much prefer mountain hiking.
Okay. I think I feel you though. I think I agree with that.
I like the crisp air when you're hiking, not like sweating the second you take your 20th step.
That's fair. Yeah.
taking deep breaths of dust from other people, and less crowded when you're hiking in the mountains.
That's true. I guess they're not as accessible as the spots down here. Plus, just the population centers, like SoCal, is way more densely populated than more mountainous regions.
And the quote hikes that you would go on down here, it's going to be more of like a walk.
Yeah, an easy access. Yeah,
easier access. Yeah,
gotcha.
A park that they have some hills to hike up, and they are tough, and you are heavy breathing. But it's like one, you're not necessarily climbing up the literal face of a mountain.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So you guys are big into hiking. Do you guys go camping often at all?
Not often. In fact, the first time my husband and I went camping was on Trek over the summer.
Like just recently.
Yeah, he had never stayed in a tent before.
No way.
So, but he's wanted to. His family just didn't do that growing up, so it's not like he's opposed to it. And I really like camping, but of course I've never been the one to have to plan it.
Yeah.
And so I still feel like if I were to instigate it, I need to start from scratch too and know, here's how you make a tinfoil dinner. Here's how you start a gas stove or like a campfire. Like I know the basics, like, okay, like, throw dust on the fire, don't throw dust on the fire, put water on it, don't put water on it, things like that, how to start a fire. I know how to do all that. But in terms of preparing for certain types of weather, I feel like I'd have to do more research on that or what types of foods to bring up. I know the basics again, like I said, but the nuances that maybe our dad would know more of. I haven't internalized as much.
That's fair. It's a huge responsibility, and it's something that I never really knew, never really appreciated or understood, that you're doing everything from like planning the routes to even get there, the food, everything from the bathroom breaks to what you're going to do when you get there, what are you going to drink, how are you going to carry all of that stuff, like all these thoughts and ideas and logistics that as a kid just completely went over your head. But
yeah, like I can set up a tent, but like reserving a campsite, I haven't done that.
Next level.
Which is super easy, I'm sure, but again, that's just an experience I haven't had, but I can do it once and then I would feel totally comfortable doing it, right?
So did you guys enjoy camping together that one time on Trek?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was really fun. I think it was 2 nights, so it's not like it was crazy, but it was fun and we both liked it. We'd love to do it again.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's cool. And since we like visiting national parks, I think camping is a good way to stay multiple days and do that.
That would be really cool. I think that's like the next level that I want to get to on camping is actually going to the national parks, having the pass, finding campsites there. Because like I'm fine to go like on a little app and go find free campsites near me, kind of just like rinky-dinky situations. But it would be fun to spend like several back-to-back days in Yosemite and all these other cool national parks. That'd be sweet.
And even then, there's a distinction between car camping and backpacking camping.
Yeah.
Even then, like that's a different jump as well.
When I think of camping, my mind automatically goes to like backpacking camping, like whole tent poles and stuff. I've only ever gone like car camping. I put that in air quotes once. We literally just slept in the trunk of the car, and it was freezing cold outside. This was the worst night of my entire life, which is saying something because I feel like I've had a lot of bad nights. But it was like in the dead of winter in Provo. We drove up into the canyon, like several feet of snow. Temperatures got down to like the teens. And we just like threw a few blankets in the back of the car. I was like, yeah, we're going to spend the night here with some friends. And it was the worst. I think I slept maybe 5 minutes, and in the morning we drove back in hot tub for like an hour.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah.
But truthfully, at least like the definition of car camping that I'm more used to is you're still in a tent, but your car is just.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Accessible, not like glamping.
No, So the car camping is like your car is still present, your campfire is right there, your tent is right there. The backpacking would be you've left your car 50 miles away and you've hiked 50 miles in and you camp.
That's fair. That is more hardcore.
Backpacking. Car camping is like your car has like all the stuff in it and you just bring the gear in and out as you need to.
That's kind of my vibe. That is currently.
And I think, truthfully, because your car is not insulated, nor is the tent insulated.
Yeah.
You're going to be warmer actually in a tent with other bodies.
That's what I was thinking.
Than
in a car. It's way too exposed. Like in retrospect, there was actually an igloo, like a giant pile of snow that people have like come in before. It's like carved it all out, like a really cool igloo that could have fit like 6 people. And in retrospect, I so wish we had just slept in there, just all of us together. I think it would have been way warmer than like individually in our cars, just freezing to death.
Yeah, no way. I feel like I've done something similar to that, and I'm like, no way, I'm never doing that again.
What in this? Okay.
Yeah.
No desire to go freeze.
Nope, no thanks.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So besides hiking, some little camping here and there, what else do you guys like to do?
We enjoy a lot of different activities and arts. So, for example, we actually go see a lot of school, like high school and local community colleges and plays and concerts, musical concerts, musicals, plays. Did I say that already? And sports games. We've seen a lot of like women's and men's volleyball games. And so we just find a lot of the cool local stuff that is great. And of course, with social media, you can get updates of like, this is our schedule for this semester, or this is what's going on next Saturday. And we're like, okay, like, let's do it.
That's a good use of social media right there.
Absolutely.
That's cool you guys are proactive about that. I feel like very few people are actually integrated into the community in which they live.
Yeah. In fact, some of our favorite plays have actually been high school plays or musicals.
Yeah.
And it's high quality. The stuff they do is incredible and honestly on par with the performing arts school that you're in high school.
It's kind of cool to think that the plays you're seeing, of course, like there's a whole funnel system of like all the actors to the best actors, but it's kind of cool to think that the best actors came from these high schools and probably performed in these high school shows. So for all we all know, we could be seeing top tier talent in cultivation mode.
Absolutely, and I guarantee you, like the main character and this sub character that I've seen in these two different plays, different people. That I'm like, they're going on to
Destined for greatness.
Stuff. Like that was like absolutely Broadway performance in my brain. Like,
Dang.
And in terms of vocals too, and I was like, this person's like a junior, senior in high school, and they have insane vocals, and they can dance up the wazoo, and they can do it all at the same time. And of course, these are skills that they teach you, and or you have it and they foster it. But it was next level. Like that's just like born within you, and you definitely honed.
That's cool. That's cool. You guys get to catch it early.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of funny how like the theater kids in high school get like a bad rap, like a bad connotation to them, and yet the Brad Pitt, Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman types of the world are applauded and so cool, and every little boy wants to be like them.
Absolutely. We're like, these actors are so cool. They're the coolest among us. And I'm like, do you realize where they started? Some people had different careers prior to them becoming actors, but a lot of them, they're theater kids at heart.
Yeah.
And why should we bash on their past when we're celebrating their current self?
Totally.
And make fun of the current people that are in that quote past, but they're just their high school self.
Exactly.
We should be making fun of anyone, honestly. But we do also like, worship the athletes. So it's a similar realm, I think.
Yeah, no, totally. That's cool. You guys get to integrate into the community, catch it early.
I know. I'm sweet. People, I'm like, they just graduated high school, but where are you now? I want to like follow your career.
Where are they now? They're living among us.
Exactly. I want to know where they went.
That would be cool. Like for all you know, they do go to Broadway. They do go star in some big production, go move on to college and in some big play.
Yeah. I just want to hear them sing one last time.
Sweet. No, it's cool how into the arts you guys are. Because I know a lot of people, and maybe it's just the world that I live in, but a lot of it revolves around like sports and athletic oriented activities. Mm-hmm. But there's always been a big piece of me that would love to go to like an orchestra or a concert or a play, or you guys just went to, what was it called? Color Me Mine or
Color Me Mine, the pottery, and you paint it and they fire it for you.
Yeah, like such a unique date activity or just solo activity or group with friends activity. And that's like something that a lot of people would never thoroughly consider. It's like a cool artistic
don't know what's around you, and so, truthfully, for myself, sometimes I wouldn't think of either. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, my husband does like notice these things and pick up on it. He's like, you know what? Like, what are you doing tonight? Like, do you want to go do this? I'm like, that's so cool of you to find this. First of all, consider that we would enjoy doing it, which of course we would. Like, very fun. But yeah, we do have a balance of here's these athletic things, these artistic things, our own crafty things, physical things like the hiking and other activities that we do. So the kayaking and the paddleboarding and biking and other things that we have access to around here as well.
That's cool. It's cool that Mark, is it okay if I reference him by name?
Sure, sure.
Okay, cool. But it's cool that Mark is into that stuff too. And I feel bad because I feel like Mark is such a cool guy, but I just haven't spent enough time with him to like really just get to know him. Like all those little pieces of him and like that piece of him that loves art or going to Color Me Mine. Like I would have never guessed, but that's so cool.
And the thing is too, I think most of us have that diversity and those diverse interests inside of us. We just need to like be more open about it, to either pursue it or to be more open in our conversation about it. Or to seek it out. It takes a different personality to want to enjoy it, like such as yourself. You're like, oh yeah, I would be super down to like go to a color me mine type of place.
Yeah.
But to seek it out is a different aspect of your personality or your desires. Like there's always like an instigator. Because even for me, it's like, I would love to do that, but do I find these things actively? Do I actively pursue them? Do I look them up? Do I invite other people? No, like he's the one who tends to do that. And I'm like totally on board unless I bring it up like, hey, this next concert or this movie's coming out in 2 weeks. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
But I didn't know Color Me Mine was nearby, but he found it.
Yeah, there we go. Good on him. And it's cool that you guys each have a buddy who's supportive of those things. Because, like, Michaela has been super good about introducing me to stuff going around on campus or just in the community that's more artistically oriented. Because for me, that's a world I don't step foot into often, but, like, I'm not opposed to it. So it's kind of cool to have someone who finds this stuff and is willing to bring it up because it gets me to incorporate myself into that world.
And it makes it more fun because, you know, you're showing it to someone or bringing it to their attention that you know that they would enjoy too.
Yeah.
And that you would enjoy together.
Yeah.
And good for whoever is the one being invited that they're open to doing something that they maybe wouldn't normally do.
Mm-hmm.
But they, of course, would be interested in.
Yeah.
Or at least be willing to give it a try.
Totally. I think it's a beautiful aspect of life how everyone has these little passions or niche interests, and then you all get to share them, like cross collaborate. It just exposes us to so many new ideas. And I get excited when other people get excited about their little thing, whether that's pottery or coloring or theater or football, you know? It's like, that's so cool. You get so excited about this. Mm-hmm. So that's so cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So then beyond the artistic pursuits and the hiking, you're also a dental hygienist.
I am.
And it's been a long road to get there. You have a bachelor's degree. You double majored too, right?
I did, yes.
Dang. And then you go to dental hygiene school,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's like a 2 years on top of everything you just did.
Yes.
Dang. So what was that whole process like?
It was a process. I didn't feel like it was a slow process, but of course it's school on top of more school, right? It was basically, at least for me, took the place of a grad program.
Yeah.
And so I graduated with a degree in interdisciplinary humanities, and I did a double major with Spanish studies. And I just did the dental hygiene prerequisite classes during my bachelor's. And so essentially I could just apply straight to dental hygiene school after that. But if you're not going to do the bachelor's route and study something else, you could take the prerequisite courses, but it will take you 2 years, right? Yeah. And so if you have 2 years of prereqs and then 2 years of dental hygiene school, what is that? 4 years. Yeah. You know, so technically you should get a bachelor's for that.
Even though it's technically an associate's.
Well, some programs are bachelor's now.
Okay,
and in
cool.
fact, they're kind of pushing for most programs to become bachelor programs. The school that I graduated from actually is converting to a bachelor's degree like next year.
Oh, no way.
So I'm glad I already have my bachelor degree because then I don't need to like do a completion program for my bachelor's. But it is a bummer. It's like I graduated just 2 years earlier and I have an associate's.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Is that ever a thing where somebody gets 2 bachelor's degrees from 2 different universities?
Absolutely, yeah.
Interesting. I've never really heard of that happening.
Yeah, I mean, you can if you want to. Education's education.
Yeah.
But you could just as easily, maybe not just as easily, but just do a master's and kind of build on your previous education. So that's typically what people tend to do. But you could technically just like take classes and whatever.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So hypothetically, you could have 5, 6, 7 bachelor's degrees.
Hypothetically,
you were just crazy enough to keep going back to school just for that. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's funny because I've heard of people having like multiple master's degrees.
Yeah.
Bachelor's.
Yeah, I guess master's is technically almost like you're trying to specialize at that point, right? And so bachelor is like the dip your toes in, maybe a little bit more broad, but you can be narrow. You know, there's like Eastern Asian studies, which Eastern Asian is still already a massively broad category. But
that's fair. Gotcha. But anyway, so that was your educational background, and now you're practicing as a dental hygienist in Orange County.
I am. Yeah, I graduated, I guess it would be a year and a half ago. I've been practicing for... Actually, no, you're right. It's been longer.
I know. It's kind of crazy. Time's going by fast.
Yeah. No, I've been practicing for over a year now. Yeah, a year and a half. And it's been great. It's a good experience. I feel like I was appropriately educated about what it would entail. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's always a different experience when you've been told about it and then when you get into it. Yeah. There's still that adjustment. Yeah. But I don't feel like I was woefully misled as to like the pros and the cons or what the lifestyle would be like or not be like.
That's good.
There are, of course, some things I'm like, oh, I didn't anticipate that, or that's different, or I don't like that about this. But I feel like what they told me has been fulfilled. Cool. They're like, wow, the flexibility of the schedule, or the great pay, or the autonomy or lack of autonomy, depending on the circumstance, and
Gotcha.
just the friendliness that the rapport you have with patients, and if you're in a really good practice, you can enjoy the same benefits of like being part of an office that, for example, I grew up with. And so I'm familiar with those people. I'm familiar with the way that the practice runs. So the people that talked me into it, they didn't lie to me.
Nice. Shout out to them. Thanks for being honest.
Yeah.
That's cool. So it sounds like there's a lot of like variability within the profession. Like you could have little hours, you could have a lot of hours, you could have a lot of rigor, or you could be more of a chill job. Is that right?
I think so. It depends on the practice, the office that you work at, their philosophy.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, you just have to find that office that fits with the ambition and kind of you just have to find a good match. You have to find a good employer. They have to find a good employee.
Gotcha.
And so you can find something that's super rigorous. You can find something that's super chill, but hopefully you're still providing that standard of care that is appropriate for the patients.
It's just needed
to make sure you're keeping up with your ethics and morals.
Of course. Is there a lot of opportunity for like ethical dilemmas within that sphere of dental hygiene?
There is, because it's part of the medical field.
Yeah.
And so I took an entire class on the laws and ethics of the profession. Mm-hmm. And California has its own law and ethics exam for you to become licensed. Really? Yeah, so I took a written exam, and then a few months later took a clinical hands-on exam, and then a few months later, maybe a month later, I took my law and ethics exam, which is unique to California. But
okay. Gotcha. So could you run me through like an example of an ethical dilemma you might face as a dental hygienist?
Oh, there have been so many examples, but I'm trying to think of one that is pertinent. Here's one. So a patient has autonomy, and they have the final decision on what treatment they get or don't get, right? But as a healthcare provider, you have to provide care that would be for their benefit. You can't intentionally do anything for their detriment.
Yeah.
And so, but if a patient is constantly refusing a certain treatment, that would be for their benefit, either restorative, like to fix something that's broken, or even something diagnostic, like taking x-rays or taking periodontal assessment measurements. Those are required and necessary for you to make an accurate assessment of their health, as well as to diagnose the treatment you're going to give them, whether it's preventive and prophylaxis, if it's, more aggressive, like you need a periodontal therapy treatment, which is like, you have a diagnosis, now we need to fix it, or we're trying to fix it. Anyway, so you are supposed to provide these assessments to diagnose what treatment you do, but the patient, because it's their body, they're like, hey, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. Or I know I have this infected tooth, but like, you are not going to take it out. And we're like, okay, well, we're in this dilemma where it's like, we can't willingly and legally let you live with that tooth and us continue to treat you as if we don't have it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, you're like, okay, you have to find a different office. Yeah. Or we can't treat you anymore, essentially.
Like, period. Like, hey, if you're refusing treatment on this one thing, we can't treat you at all and anything else.
Well, you just need to make sure that you're covering your own license, right? Because let's say something bad happens to this patient, like they either get a really bad infection that spreads to their brain, their heart, it affects other things in their mouth, it starts to really affect their overall health. And then they sue you, and you're like, I've been trying to treat you, but they're like, hey, you haven't taken x-rays on this person for 10 years. Like, that's on you now,
Can they like sign a document saying like, hey, I refuse treatment, I accept the risks and liabilities inherent to that?
They can sign any document. However, in the case of legality and also just in terms of maintaining your license, technically to protect your license, they should be, for example, maybe getting x-rays every 2 years. That's kind of the maximum in a lot of places. They can't go beyond the 2 years. Otherwise, my license would be in jeopardy.
Okay. But if they say no?
If they say no, I can't force myself to take x-rays or to do treatment. And that's their decision, and I have to respect that. So I can't force myself, but what's the other thing? I just let it go. But then I'm at risk of my license. So I say, hey, this is your choice, but if this goes on another time, we're just not a good fit, right? You just need to find another office.
Gotcha.
That will do what you want them to do. And then they accept that risk,
Okay.
the patient and that next office, as opposed to me. You just got to watch out for yourself.
Okay. So the solution in this dilemma scenario case is to recommend them to a different office to kind of offload them as a patient.
That would probably be the most ideal case in that scenario.
Okay.
But you also can't drop them as a patient. They have to be given sufficient notice and reasons. And hey, if you complete this treatment, we are happy to continue our services. We can't also drop them in the middle of treatment. Like, let's say we have a treatment plan, like we have to get these 4 teeth done. We can't drop them after like 2 of the 4 things completed.
Gotcha.
Unless we give them sufficient notice and we give them maybe a recommendation. Here's a new doctor. Here's the information. Here's a new appointment for you. Make that transition easier for them.
Gotcha.
You don't want to drop the ball because then, again, you're putting your license at risk.
Fair. How often is it that somebody's refusing treatment?
I don't know how often. Sometimes it's a certain personality. Sometimes it's when they've had so much treatment and they're getting tired of it. And sometimes they just come up with this new information that they hear online or from their friends, and they just suddenly out of the blue make a decision like, I'm never doing this ever again. Like, I'm never getting a root canal. I'm never getting a tooth filled. I'm never doing x-rays again. And for whatever reason, you just have to deal with it as a case-by-case basis.
Is that like a weekly occurrence, though, where someone's refusing critical treatment?
No, I wouldn't say so. Most people, especially if you've built up, again, that rapport with the person, that they should trust your professional opinion, and you should be giving them information that you're like, if this was my mom, if this is my grandma, if this is my child, how would I recommend this treatment? How would I talk to them?
Okay, gotcha. So instances of people refusing treatment are pretty far and few between.
Yes, especially if it's a well-established patient, or at least an office that has maybe protocol for these scenarios too.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. That's cool. Nobody's causing much friction at your job then, at least not in that way.
Yeah.
That's nice. Is dental hygiene something you foresee yourself sticking around with?
I like to think so. In terms of ergonomics and trying to take care of your body, I see why a lot of people transition, not necessarily out of dental hygiene, but maybe out of the full clinical hours of it. So maybe they'll, instead of working 4 days a week, they're going to work now 2 or 3, but to make up for those other days, they're now going to work in a corporation, work corporate, or in a business, maybe selling supplies or visiting dental hygiene schools and giving presentations or promoting a product or working on advertising, or go the public health route and start doing something like that. So people will still continue to pursue options in the profession of dental hygiene, but maybe it's not clinical anymore.
Okay.
So at least for myself, I don't see myself doing clinical the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I really like the option of maybe teaching as well, which was something I had considered prior to even pursuing dental hygiene in the first place.
Really cool. You would make a good teacher.
Spanish teaching, but at the time it didn't appeal to me for more than a couple months. So I was like, I need to find a profession that I could stick around with for more than a couple months.
Oh, that's good.
So, but I like that it kind of combines, the dental hygiene skills with the teaching, which I feel like, again, I feel like I would be good at that.
Totally.
But you need to have a minimum of 5 years of clinical before you pursue something like that.
Is there any more higher education that you would need to acquire?
A bachelor is kind of necessary, and I do have that. A master's is recommended as well, because then you can do more as a professor.
Yeah. Also research.
Research too. Yeah. Oh, that's another avenue for dental hygiene. People write articles all the time. They do research. So
that was something that was really eye-opening to me. Because, me and my layman, ignorant perspective, it's like, dental hygiene's so easy. They just come in and clean your teeth and tell you need to floss more. You bleed because you don't floss.
Yeah.
And then you open up my eyes to, there's this whole world of research and interconnectedness between your mouth and the rest of your body and all the intricacies of dental hygiene. Like, this is something else I want to talk about too, is you mentioned the ergonomics, like the literal positioning. There are classes on that, how to do it correctly, and how if you don't do that correctly, there are some serious consequences that your body can face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, and truthfully, I didn't know all those ins and outs either until I started school. I was like, oh, like this is a thing.
This is really complex.
I was in my first week of dental hygiene school. I didn't know that dental hygienist cleaned below the gut line. I had no idea that was a thing. And I was like, I'm not super crazy into the medical stuff. Like, I see someone's nasty Band-Aid and I kind of shiver at that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like going into the medical field. Like, what is wrong with me? I'm like, I knew I had to give some injections. And so had kind of mentally prepared myself for that a little bit, even though I hadn't gotten to that semester yet. But I was like, I have to clean under the gums. Like I have to go under people's gums. I thought it was just like la la la, like scraping teeth. Yeah. What did I know? And I'm literally in the program. I've learned a lot in those 2 years, let me tell you. And since then, so
yeah, I bet. Yeah. What are some of those like applicable or just like fun facts about dental hygiene or mouth hygiene that most people wouldn't know?
I do have a lot of those. One of them, which you had just mentioned, is that there's a connection between our mouth and the rest of the body.
That's huge.
Yes, it is huge. We call it the oral systemic link. And there's more research coming out that's becoming at least more public and common knowledge among everyone that it's like, hey, the certain bacteria you have in your mouth, it of course travels throughout your body. And so they found that same bacteria from periodontal disease. If you have that bacteria that's, causing the bleeding gums, causing bone loss, etc. They found it in patients who have developed Alzheimer's. They have found it in a lot of people with cardiovascular issues. And cardiovascular disease is like the #1 cause of death in the United States right now. Mm. And they've also found there to be a connection between periodontal disease and people with diabetes. Oh. And that's also, it's like, goes both ways. Where if you have periodontal disease, you are more likely to develop diabetes and can be like caused by that. And also, if you have diabetes, it will cause you to be more prone to periodontal disease. And if you fix it, it can also help both issues.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's crazy how big that is. And I feel like that's something that 99% of the U.S. population probably doesn't know. Mm-hmm. Mouth health is so connected to your overall holistic health.
It makes sense. Like your mouth is literally, it's part of your GI tract. Nutrition, we know, is super important. Mm-hmm. Like if you eat an apple versus some crackers, the apple's going to do you more good, right? Yeah. And even for your teeth physically, but we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. But the apple will do better for your body because due to like the acid levels, the temperature changes, your general digestion, your gut health. And that's going to be better. And if you have an issue in your body, it's going to show up some signs of it in your mouth, and vice versa. If there's something problematic in your mouth, it will show up somewhere else in your body.
Yeah. So what should people do if they want to avoid all these diseases? Like, what is the game plan of success here?
You know what? Let's be stereotypical here. Yeah. You should floss.
Like once a day, twice a day?
Well, I mean, you could do it
every other day
in the evening, and that's fine. Okay. Once a day. But the main thing with flossing, it's less like just the process and the action of flossing. It's really you're trying to remove the plaque, the food debris. You're trying to get all that stuff out of your mouth. So you're not swallowing it. The bacteria is eating the food on your teeth, right? It's not, the bacteria isn't just like eating, sugar doesn't cause cavities. It's the bacteria eating the food on your teeth, which is then eating into your teeth.
Gotcha.
It's basically pooping out acid, and the acid rots your teeth.
Makes sense.
And so here we are, just eating food. I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. The applications for the general public about what we should do to avoid any detriments. Yes, so floss.
Yes, flossing, just removing all that external stuff. That way the bacteria doesn't have anything to eat.
Gotcha.
So brushing, flossing, tongue scraping, just removing all that extra stuff out.
Yeah, tongue scraping was a new thing to me too. Like as a kid, I mean, they said brush your tongue. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. But there's like an actual like tool. There's a thing you can buy that scrapes your tongue.
Yeah.
And what are the benefits to that?
Yeah, so I mean, brushing your tongue is great, but your tongue is just kind of like a microscopic version of a toothbrush. Like it has all these bristles on it, all the different papilla, all the things like that, and so it just harbors a lot of bacteria on your tongue, which can also lead to malodor and things like that. But a tongue scraper, it's firmer, right, and can help scrape off that biofilm, just that layer.
And that's like the white stuff. Exactly. I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah.
Yeah, like that film, that kind of plaquey biofilm stuff. Scrape that off, and suddenly, like, you don't really have as much bad breath. You're able to talk easier. You don't have that kind of sensation of
like a sticky kind of.
Yeah, because you want your saliva to be like more clean. You don't want to be like tainted by anything. Mm-hmm. But of course, there are a lot of things that affect even the saliva in your mouth, like dry mouth. A lot of medications cause xerostomia, which is dry mouth.
Interesting.
A lot of other things as well cause it. So you just have to be aware of what is going on in your mouth, because then you can fix it. Like, let's say you have bad breath or you have that really white tongue. If you get a tongue scraper and then it gets resolved by doing that, perfect.
Awesome. I got to buy a tongue scraper.
They're great. When I started using one, and granted, I don't use it all the time. I've kind of gone through phases of using it, but when I use it, I'm like, man, this is the greatest thing.
Yeah.
That and an electric toothbrush.
That's true. I do love my electric toothbrush. I used to be kind of one of those anti guys who's like, man, the old classic, it works just fine. Like, I don't want to have to charge it every now and then. It's just another thing to do. But I've fallen in love with it. I think it's so nice.
It's a game changer. Like, you think you're brushing your teeth well, and you may be doing it really well with the manual toothbrush, but then you bring out that electric toothbrush and it just shows you up.
It is next level.
It's so consistent. It gets every nook and cranny, assuming you're, letting it do its thing and not just like going ham in whatever corner. But it does a really good job. I recommend everyone to get that because it's just less for you to focus on. Like,
it's convenient.
It's convenient. It does a really good job.
And it feels good.
It feels good. Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of ruined for life. Every now and then, like, I forget it if I go on a trip, but I have like another toothbrush, just one of the old-fashioned kinds, and it's not the same, and I always miss it.
Yeah.
It's like I need my electric toothbrush. I've ruined it now.
There was a time, I thought it was kind of funny. I was sick and I didn't want to contaminate my electric toothbrush. Mm-hmm. I know you can replace the heads, right? Yeah. But I just wanted to use a manual toothbrush. That way I could throw it away like in 2 days when I was feeling better. So I was using this manual toothbrush, and the first time I brought it out, put the toothpaste on, put it in my mouth, I literally started waiting for it to start, like spinning or vibrating or something. I was just like holding it there, and I was like, "What is wrong with me?" Like, I was laughing at myself in the mirror because here I am, just like trying to wait. I'm waiting for this manual toothbrush to do its job when I'm like, "Oh, I'm supposed to do the job now." Like, okay.
Such an interesting first world problem.
I know.
That's interesting. So you brought up this other point about like teeth and mouth crowding and a whole situation going on there, like how the foods you chew affects the structure of the teeth and a whole bunch of other factors. Mind digging into that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go back to the apples and cracker example. So when you're biting into an apple, the apple is fibrous. Mm. And even in the process of biting into the apple, it is essentially like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
And so that helps just mechanically remove some of that plaque and builds up on your teeth already because it's a fibrous food. A carrot will also help with that. But if you eat a cracker is soft. It's very starchy. So you chew a cracker, it just gets all mushy and then it gets stuck in your teeth as opposed to brushing stuff off your teeth. And so that's just an example of how the foods we eat, not only are they nutritionally, beneficial or less so, but also it helps physically remove the biofilm, which is what we're trying to do with our brushing and our flossing. I've noticed this too with chewing gum. On days where I'm chewing a lot of gum, I can feel the buildup more because it's like mixing with the saliva in my mouth and just creating some more film on my teeth. But on days where I'm not chewing a lot of gum, or I'm not eating throughout the day, I have less biofilm on my teeth, less plaque.
Which probably feels good. Like you have like that gritty taste.
Yeah, the soft feel, the gritty
texture.
Feel. And then you have better breath because that's not harboring in your mouth in like a warm environment for hours on end.
Yeah. And there's something you mentioned the other day about how like humans throughout time, our mouths have adapted to the foods that we eat and how the foods we eat these days are much softer than the foods we were eating back in the day. Is that correct? I feel like I heard that. I don't know if that was from you or someone else.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I'd have to fact check that. I mean, it makes sense. Of course, things evolve. And of course, our diet has absolutely evolved over time. And you could even argue like back in, 50 years ago, we ate more mushy foods because we had a lot of casseroles or we had a lot of canned things. Nowadays, maybe we even prioritize eating, quote, healthier because we're very much into like the organic foods and make sure you eat your fruits and veggies. And of course, that was 50 years ago as well, but just the way you prepare food is different. Are you steaming your vegetables? Are you eating them raw? Things like that.
Yeah.
But
because from what I've heard, there's a connection also between like jaw strength and jaw shape, like sharp jaw lines, and like chewing whole, like tougher foods than what you would be if you're eating like mashed potatoes and a Slurpee. And
yes, no, and it's shown that people who start losing teeth or don't have as many teeth or who don't have teeth at all, they don't live as long because they are not getting the nutrition that they should be. And two, it affects the shape of your jaw, which affects your breathing capabilities. But if you're able to keep your teeth strong, you can bite foods. You can bite in the front, you can bite it off, you can munch them on the back molars. You can swallow it appropriately in smaller bites as opposed to big things, which will help in your digestion in smaller bites, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or smaller particles of food. And so if you have teeth, you're going to be a healthier person, and it's going to maintain your jaw shape. Yeah. I know people who breathe through their mouth, they have a different jaw shape because face shape, because you're going to have a receded jaw because you're breathing more through your mouth, and also your teeth shift when your mouth is open. And so you're going to have maybe more crowding in your teeth, more crooked teeth. Gotcha. Which is why you want to sleep with your mouth closed. You want to breathe through your nose, which helps filter out the air. It also humidifies everything so you don't get dry mouth. Mm-hmm. You don't have like issues with your breathing either. Yes. And if you have issues with your breathing, clenching and grinding is also very common. Oh yeah. If you're breathing through your mouth, and also people can have sleep apnea because they have airway issues, and so they start snoring, and that just so everything's connected in your body, right? Yeah. No, that's so cool. Even right now, I feel like I have shifted the gears into manual, and like I'm trying to consciously close my mouth when I'm not talking. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, that is cool. It's something to keep in mind. Keep your mouth closed. And there are exercises to that, and this is becoming more common, myofunctional therapy. And I know several dental hygienists that have, done a program or certification for that. And I work at an office where a doctor will refer patients to a myofunctional therapist to train them on how to hold their tongue, certain tongue positions, ways to breathe, not breathe, ways to swallow and talk. It's almost like you're going to speech therapy, yeah, but it's just therapy for your tongue and your breathing, your talking, your speech, your swallowing. Okay. They'll do certain therapies, certain exercises for you to practice. That's fascinating. I never knew that was a thing. Yeah, at least the doctor that I work for currently, they will refer a lot of little kids who have lip ties, tongue ties, because that will also affect your sleeping, breathing, talking, eating, even to the point where it's like people who have gotten tongue tie releases, they can now eat better, they can sleep better, they're not wetting the bed anymore, they're not clenching and grinding their teeth. It saves a lot of stuff. Gotcha. What do you mean by tongue tie? Tongue tie, so this frenum that's connecting the bottom of your tongue to the bottom of your mouth, right there. Sometimes people have a really tight tie. So their tongue's not as like loose in their mouth. Yeah, like it can't touch the roof of your mouth. They can't stick it out really far. Oh, interesting. And a lot of babies, when they're first born, they have a hard time latching to the mother if she's trying to breastfeed because they have a tongue tie. Oh. And so either with a laser, they will kind of make an incision right there on that frenum to loosen the tongue. That way it can either latch, it can eat better, you can sleep better. And then once they get to the talking phase, they can talk better. You can talk better. Yeah, people will have a lisp sometimes, or a lot of people, they will have tongue thrust. They're pushing their tongue at their teeth, back of their teeth, which will cause them to spread and open up and kind of create that open shape in their mouth. Even thumb sucking will affect the roof of the palate, the shape of the palate. That's crazy how valuable it all is. Yes, and of course, kids are growing. It can affect like a full-blown adult as well. But yeah, it's interesting. In the gym, I've noticed that whenever I'm in the middle of a heavy lift or something, I tend to push my tongue against like my top teeth really hard. I make that face like, and I wonder if that causes any like spreading of the teeth or anything I should be careful of. Yeah. If done for an extended period of time or just repetitively, it can. Okay. I know these oral habits affect everything, right? And so I know I bite my nails. I used to a lot. And my hygienist could tell because I had some chipping on my teeth. And she's like, "Do you bite your nails?" And I was kind of embarrassed. And I was like, "I used to." LOL, I did it like yesterday. Yeah. But biting your nails, or they've even mentioned like fishermen who hold the hook or the string, the line in their teeth. It will start to make an indentation. No. Or people who sew a lot, they'll put a needle between their teeth just to hold it temporarily. It'll start to form that shape. And so if your tongue is constantly pushing on the back of your teeth, of course it's going to make your kind of teeth flare a little bit, open up, create some spacing. And naturally, as we get older, our teeth start to shift. So the bottom teeth often start to crowd forward. Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of adults, if they haven't had retainers earlier, they have to get braces in their, 40s because they started to get some shifting. They're like, "I've never had braces. My teeth were straight. Why are they not straight anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because our teeth shift as we get older, but also if you breathe through your mouth, if your mouth is open all the time, they're going to shift around. They're not in a stable position.
Gotcha. There seems to be an interesting dichotomy between what I've heard about teeth being one of the strongest bones in your body, and I even saw a video. It had been like a year ago now, but have you ever seen those videos where they have this hydraulic press and they put like toys or something,
Yes,
and they see like the pressure that it can withstand? So I saw one video with a human tooth to see the pressure that it can withstand, and it withstood a ton of pressure before it cracked. It was like I forget what it is. I didn't want to say a number, but it was insane. And then you hear stories like this where the fishermen with the line or rod in their mouth or whatever, and it's leaving indentations or even just chewing fingernails. So how do you resolve that dichotomy between being able to withstand so much pressure and yet being so malleable?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing the tooth in the hydraulic press video is probably a molar.
Yeah,
It's
I think it was, yeah.
recognizable of a tooth. And so our molars, we'll just use that as an example, very strong teeth. They can withstand, and I forget the number as well, but so many newtons of force, right? And so, and if something happens to that, let's say it's compromised, like maybe you have a filling that's starting to wear down on the edges, or you got like a chia seed or an almond stuck back there. You bite down, and it just like gets in a weak spot, and it just fractures all the way down the tooth. That happens.
Oh, wow.
And so, which it shouldn't happen. Our teeth are very strong. They are able to last your whole life. But sometimes those things happen. And it just takes, a little bit of some breakdown on the margin of a filling, or if you have a really deep groove in the tooth and something just gets stuck right there in a perfect spot.
Gotcha. It's just like bad place, bad time. Have you ever like seen a patient where their tooth snapped because of that kind of situation?
I've seen existing fractures.
Okay.
And I've seen mostly I've seen a lot of periodontally compromised patients.
Yeah.
A lot of gum stuff, very loose teeth.
Yeah.
My professor would call it flapping in the breeze.
That makes me cringe.
I'm holding the tooth down in the socket and trying to skill at the same time so it doesn't come out.
Oh.
Good times.
Oh boy, that sounds terrible. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but I've had to train my eyes to recognize more dental restoration type of things, and hygiene school. I'm more focused on the gums and those and issues related to that, such as calculus removal and things like that. But I had to train my eyes to look at more of a dentist point of view because they're looking at things to fix as opposed to things to prevent.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, like this margin of this filling, this restoration is wearing a little thin, or there's a chip over here, or there's a dark spot right in the grooves of the occlusal, the chewing surface of this tooth. Like, let's have him take a look at that, or have her take a look at that. So I've had to train my eyes a little bit more, but I will notice like some big fractures, and you'll see it too. There's like a line going down the tooth. They could be very small fractures or hairline fractures. Or they could be a big thing.
Gotcha. And luckily today we have the technology and the tools to resolve a lot of those issues. We have fillings, we have solutions. But back in the day when those solutions didn't exist, what did people do?
Honestly, they pulled the tooth. It's in so much literature and people's journals where it's like, oh, like Uncle Billy, like he had a toothache and he just pulled it out with a screwdriver. That's like a Ron Swanson thing.
Yeah, it's like Castaway.
But yeah, you get a toothache and you get it pulled, and that's the only way to deal with it.
Gotcha.
Because in the tooth pain, dental pain is actually what drives most people to get things fixed is pain.
Yeah.
And that's the same with dental care.
Gotcha. So back in the day, people were walking around with gaps in their teeth. That was just a normal thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure they had really bad breath just from infections.
Yeah.
It's just festering in there.
Man.
And then you get the tooth pulled and like you're all good to go. And now you're down a tooth, and of course, what is that going to affect? It's going to affect your chewing, your nutrition, etc.
Dang, that's so crazy. I'm so glad I lived today.
Yeah.
Would have been tough back then. And it's little stuff like that never crosses my mind. And then it's like, oh, if you went back to the past, you'd have to deal with that.
Yeah. And one more thing that I think is so interesting too. So you have your teeth, right? Let's say, you have to pull one, and let's say you hit an implant in. And some people just ditch all their teeth and they all get implants. But the thing is, and you think, oh, this implant is going to be the same as my tooth. It won't be. It can't withstand that same force of newtons that your real tooth can. And so when people are like, oh, like dentures will be the same or implants will all be the same, you actually can't bite down with as much force. And as a result, that will affect your nutrition, your ability to chew, your longevity, and all, it can affect like the bone in your jaw, but that's, something else. But Yeah, you can't chew as much on fake teeth as you can real teeth.
Is it common to have fake teeth break? Or people's dentures break due to chewing force?
Not necessarily breaking, but it's more like, I mean, they can break and we can't fix them, but it's more just you just can't bite down. So let's say like if you have to bite something harder, you might want to bite on the side that doesn't have the implant, right?
Yeah.
Mostly because of expensive implants, but also you don't want to break them down.
It's fair.
Yeah.
It's fair. Well, this has been super enlightening. Like, just to talk about this, I feel like it always opens up my mind to how much complexity and depth exists in these small worlds that few people ever dip their toes into. So that's
There's
so
a
cool.
lot of nuance and a lot of cool information out there.
Sure is. So last question. I feel bad to have you talk about work, which you do all the time anyway. We can talk more about the fun situations and fun aspects. If work wasn't a thing for you, what would you occupy your time with?
Wow. Well, I don't work every single day of the week. So I feel like I have a little taste of that.
Nice.
To know what would I do if I wasn't working? I do enjoy being outside and, going on a bike ride. I love going on walks. And of course, just being outdoors gives you the fresh air and clears your mind.
That's nice.
Trying to get back into reading.
Okay.
And trying to find some books that appeal to me. I feel like I start a lot of books, but it doesn't maintain my interests.
Are you like a fiction, nonfiction? What's your genre?
Historically, I've really enjoyed the fiction fantasy books.
Okay.
But now that I'm no longer like a teenager and it's harder for me to get into that as much because I feel like I've already read a very similar book.
Yeah, they're not supposed to taste the same.
Yeah, but I know like, the fantasy romance novels, I know a lot of people my age and older and younger really like. And I can't say I've read one of those before. I'm sure it would appeal to me and I would enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But currently I'm not reading any of those and I don't know where to find them. I'm sure I know plenty of series, but I don't know if I want to read them.
Fair.
But I have also read some historical books. I read Unbroken, which is a World War II. Yeah,
saw the movie. I should probably read the book.
Yeah, and that's a real true story, right? But I felt like I was watching a movie the whole time. But real life is a movie, right? It's just as entertaining and adventurous. But that was wild, and that got me back into reading. I also did read the new Hunger Games book.
Oh yeah, the Songbirds things.
Yeah, so that one I did enjoy, and I read that really quickly. So things like I did enjoy that, and that's fictional.
Nice.
And I have also had interest in like nutrition and wellness and health and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I would be interested in reading more thorough books. But the thing with those, I would not totally categorize them as self-help, but they do help yourself. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot of times you can condense the length of a book into much fewer chapters.
Amen. No, I felt the same way. I went through a phase of reading a ton of self-help books. And it was always shocking to me. After I would finish the book, I'd go to the SparkNotes version to kind of get like just a good summary. Yeah. Kind of refresh the mind. And I remember constantly thinking I didn't need to read the book. Like, the book is cool because you get the stories and it elaborates on all the points. But if you really just want the key points, the summaries have them, especially in that genre of self-help. There's not really a lot more to gain other than like cool fluff. I'm probably making a gross generalization, but
no, I agree with you, and I think a lot of times like you can narrow it down to a 5-paragraph essay, and that, truthfully, if you're really trying to change your life, you're trying to get that self-help, right? Mm-hmm. You need a shorter, condensed version to more quickly make those changes in your life, and hopefully you can get the ball rolling on like, I want to be a better version, self-improvement, etc. If you're reading a whole book just to get to that point, you're like, I am now exhausted of reading this book. I don't even have the energy or motivation or discipline to start to implement these tips.
Exactly.
So I'm with you. Like, or I'll get the gist. I'm like, man, I'm so engaged in this book. It's been like 5 chapters. I love it. I never pick it up again. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of those 5 chapters, but I would love to finish the book and do something with it. But then I get into I get the gist of it just by reading the title and the back page and maybe like the first chapter. I'm like, okay, I feel motivated. Boom, I read it.
Summary. And it's kind of funny because there was a big disconnect, and I'm totally guilty of this, between the reading of the book and the application of the book. Because the whole point of the book existing is to help people in the application phase. And yet we get so lost in I read the book. I know so much about the subject of insert blank here. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do about it? Who knows,
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, I just wanted to read a book. I just checked off the box with read another book.
It's cool. If that's your goal, awesome. But Yeah, I heard a quote somewhere, and I wish I could attribute to the right person, but they said, thinking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Planning to do the thing is not doing the thing. Telling people about the thing is not doing the thing. The only thing that doing the thing is doing the thing.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even need to take that long. We sometimes think, the telling people you're going to do it, planning to do it, setting up a plan to do it, that actually takes more time than just doing the thing.
Yeah.
And even if you do the thing for like a week or 10 minutes, whatever the task is gives you more of sometimes that dopamine than all the previous stuff, than reading the book, of telling your friends.
Yeah. And infinitely more benefit because you're actually doing the thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so I do enjoy reading those books, but I wish I could enjoy them more, or at least finish them more. So I've started and stopped so many. I see a lot at the bookstore. I'm like, oh, like I want to read this. I'll take pictures of them, and I'll look them up and be like, I feel like I got the gist.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
but I never get around to reading the book sometimes.
Ben. Well, I wish you the best of luck in your endeavor.
Thank
in
you.
Your reading adventures.
Thanks.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, Camilla. I really appreciate your time. I wish we got to do this more often.
I know.
Like, just sit down and have a conversation. I feel bad. I've been here for almost a week now, and it's the first time we've gotten to do this.
Well, I'm glad we did it now. This is a good time to do it and very fun. I'm glad you invited me.
Of course, we have to run it back.
Yes.
Thank you. Hit an hour. I got to run. Bye.
Bye.